Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Fighter Heart podcast. Today, we have the pleasure of sitting with Sarah. How's it going, Sarah?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for taking the time.
I'm so happy to be here.
So, if you could, we like to get into it right away here. If you could just give us a brief rundown about, a little bit about who you are, where you're from, your upbringing, and then get into your Fighter Heart story, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada, up north. I studied graphic and web design in college, and then I did a bachelor's of commerce and I majored in marketing in university. I worked for a very long time as an e-commerce and marketing brand manager. And then my life took a turn for the better about a year and a half ago when I did share my story. And now I'm on an advocacy mission, working as a content creator, a model, an advocate, a speaker, a writer. And yeah, let's just say I shit talk a lot, but the good kind of shit talk. So yeah, a lot to unpack there.
So, what happened? Like, give us your Fighter Heart story. Like, what's your
Yeah.
comeback story here?
So, the easy, simple way of saying it is my digestive system and intestines are extremely delulu. They were very sick. They did not know how to function on their own. I have Crohn's disease. It's an inflammatory bowel disease. It causes severe inflammation, chronic pain, inability to eat, digest, and eliminate waste, essentially, going poo, what everybody does. And I fought that for 2 years from age 11 till 13. I was diagnosed in 2006. I was actually diagnosed with colitis, which is technically kind of like I always say the sister of Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed with that at age 3. So I have dealt with a form of IBD, irritable bowel syndrome disease, which is what Crohn's and colitis kind of fall underneath. And I lived in the hospital. I was, a guinea pig to so many different medications. I was fed by nose tube. I was fed by PICC line, TPN. I was literally just like fighting to gain any quality of life. I was not, as an 11-year-old, not able to go to school, not able to hang out with my friends or any of that. And it got to a point where my Crohn's disease just was so severe that my life was being questioned. Crohn's disease can happen anywhere from the mouth to the rectum, so anywhere in the digestive system. It predominantly occurs in the large intestine and the small intestine, whereas colitis only happens in the large intestine, and that's kind of the difference between the two.
Mhm.
So essentially, at age 11 in 2006, my colitis like spread and got worse and turned into Crohn's disease. So that brings us up to my first emergency surgery, May 2nd, 2008, where I woke up with a colostomy bag. Now, for those who don't know what a colostomy bag is, it is a medical device. It is a bag that is attached to your abdomen. And what the surgeons do is they take out a piece of your intestine, they detach it from the rectum. The rectum is the booty hole. We are very okay with like all these terms. We love saying them, so we're gonna get used to them.
That
Um,
works for me.
my life literally revolves around shit, so we love it. But so what the surgeon does is they detach the intestine from the rectum. They bring it out to the abdomen outside of the body. They suture it. The piece of intestine, a little, 101 vocabulary here. The piece of intestine that is sticking out of the stomach is referred to as the stoma. And then the bag, it's, medical appliances, there's adhesives, there's so many different brands out there. And basically, you're going poop in a bag on your stomach. And it's called an ostomy. So at the time, I had a colostomy because it was my colon, my large intestine. And let's just say nobody in the world willingly necessarily asks for an ostomy bag. This is, a very severe and intense surgery to deal with in terms of, physical level, but as well the mental level. Um, there is a huge adaptation process to ostomy life in terms of healing physically, in terms of healing, mentally, in terms of learning just how to navigate life. I unfortunately was extremely affected by the negative stigma, around ostomies. Unfortunately, it still exists, and that's what I work every day to, combat and fight and, raise awareness about. But a lot of individuals like myself, ostomates, individuals that have ostomies are called ostomates. We live in fear of other people's opinions towards us in terms of, are people going to think we're disgusting? Are people are going to think we're gross, that we're unattractive, we can't be beautiful, that we smell, essentially because we have a medical bag attached to us that is, basically filling up with our number twos. Now, it's none of that. It is, it's a life-saving surgery. It is a medical device. It is a very, contained area. The way somebody goes to the bathroom and cleans their booty hole, we go to the bathroom, we empty our bag and we clean our bag. We have our own hygiene process and all of that. It doesn't smell. It only smells when we're going to the bathroom, same as anybody else. And it's a form of life for us. It's literally symbolic to us because it's how we are able to live. Because if it wasn't for that surgery, what happens in many cases is, it worsens, and your intestines can essentially rupture inside of you. You can go into a coma and all of that, and it
Wow.
can continue. And Crohn's disease and colitis can, unfortunately, if they're not, they're chronic illnesses, and if they're not treated properly, they can in some cases be fatal. So this was something that, getting an ostomy at age 13, it's my coming of age as a young female. Getting ostomy surgery, I think, for, any type of gender or any type of age is an extremely, difficult adaptation, because when I first woke up, I really felt like I was now in a body that was no longer mine, that I had to learn how to live inside of. It was not my choice to get ostomy surgery. It was not a yes or no. It was, this is what's happening if you want to live, which, I wanted to live. I wanted to keep fighting. But I hid behind my illness and my ostomy for many years, almost 15 years. I navigated my adolescence, I was very picky about who I told about this, besides my family and, my closest best friends. When it came to going, to college and going to university, meeting new people, dating partners, putting on, swimsuit, even in terms of clothing, because the bag, fills up, and you can sometimes see the bag crinkles through different types of, tight dresses or leggings. My self-esteem, my body image, my confidence was extremely affected. But I had promised myself one thing when I had woke up from that surgery, which I later on ended up having four more surgeries. And one of those surgeries actually was the protectomy surgery, which was the most life-changing permanent surgery. A protectomy surgery is basically when the surgeons remove the rectum, the booty hole. They had left that portion inside of me in the beginning of my first surgery as a hope to potentially reverse the ostomy. So the surgeons are able to basically remove the ostomy, bring the intestine back into the body, and reattach it to the rectum so you could go to the bathroom through your booty again. Unfortunately, as the years went by, and we gave rest to my rectum, having not passed bowel movements through it, and I was on medication. Unfortunately, it did not improve. They started getting concerned about rectal cancer and all of that, and just having a super disease piece of organ in you. And they said, we really don't think you're a candidate for a reversal. We think you need to live with your ostomy for life. There's no going back.
Mm.
um, at this point, it was like my late teens. I had gotten an ileostomy at this point, which basically they had, through my other previous surgeries. At this point, I had had four surgeries. The three other surgeries after my first surgery, they converted the colostomy into an ileostomy. So they removed the remaining of my colon. So I have no colon, no colon, still rolling. We only have the small intestine. And they made an ileostomy with the small intestine. And then back to the protectomy surgery. So at this point, I had already lived so many years of, my late teens, my adolescence into my, early 20s. And it was, a simpler, easier decision, even though, I was still hiding, even though there was still so many challenges I knew I was going to have to, navigate in new situations because there's always new situations, with an ostomy patient and, as you go through life and experience new things. But at that point, I had seen the quality of life I had got back, and there was no way that I was going to give that away. And I said, you know what, like, let's do it. We're going to make it permanent. And I'm going to continue on, my personal journey of doing every single thing that I can that I had promised myself back when I woke up from my first surgery and felt like I was literally living my own version of hell. That I had told myself, I'm going to do every single thing I can in order to learn to accept this.
Mhm.
Which is what I had worked on, for years and years and years, doing many challenges, telling new friends slowly as I went to college and university, navigating that conversation with partners, what, intimacy and dating looks like with an ostomy, which you can do it all. I always say you can have segue time with an ostomy, nothing stops you. You can, go swimming with an ostomy, you can shower with an ostomy, you can dress cute with an ostomy, you can literally do everything. There's literally nothing that you cannot do. There might be adaptations, but no different than, somebody else that has anything else going on in their life that, needs to moderate or adapt certain things to their lifestyle.
Mhm.
And it had got to a point, that near in 2023, I just had a little bit of like an oh my God moment. And I felt like I was feeling really confident with who I was in my personal life. I had, done all these many challenges. I had done personal photo shoots. I had gotten to the point where I could wear, bikinis in public and stuff. I was not taking pictures. I was not posting on Instagram. If I was meeting strangers, I was still withholding that information. And there was always just that level of like, there's this massive piece of my life puzzle that I still keep so hidden, that is just such a weight on my heart, but at the same time is such a core of who I am, my strength, my resilience, my perseverance in life. And to me, it was just, I just wanted to be able to just be me and not be worried if it ever came to topic, or if ever, my ostomy, her name is Liv because Liv means life in Swedish, and
Oh,
she
wow.
gave me my life back. But it got to a point where I was just, physically and mentally drained. I had an opportunity with somebody in my circle to do a photo shoot with bikinis, and I knew exactly what that meant. I mean, these pictures were going to be on the internet, on social media. And, it took me a little bit of time to really think it through. And I said, you know what, like, there's no better time. It was near my 29th birthday, and I just had like I'm ready. Fuck it, screw it. Like I'm doing it. I've never been more ready in my life. It's been long enough. It was 15 years. And I did the shoot. And on my 29th birthday, September 26, 2023, I shared my first post on my Instagram of a series of me in bikinis with my ostomy Liv on display. You can totally see her. She was out, being her shitty self. And I had a caption that, explained my journey in a very, warm, lighthearted part. There were details, but nowhere near the amount of details that I'm so open and willingly share now. And that's what began this, amazing journey of just, literally fighting to, regain control over my life. I did not think it would transpire into all that it has. We've been able to quit our 9 to 5, work as a content creator, work as a model, traveling the world. I'm so proud and humbled to say that we've been able to do a lot of firsts for the ostomy community. I was the first ostomate featured in Maxim, Australia magazine. I was the first ostomate to walk New York Fashion Week. I competed in Miss Bikini US. I've done, countless interviews in order to raise awareness. And everything that I do, I always say, little me is at my heart because like she is my driving purpose, and my strength comes from her fight. And to be able to stand up for my community and fight for this representation, and fight to gain diversity and inclusion, and have ostomies showcased in the media, and have ostomies in areas where ostomates sometimes feel like we are underrepresented, and where we're looked at as a minority, where my goal is to completely change that narrative, break the stigma, and completely normalize the fact that yeah, we go poo in a bag, but it's super cool because I could literally be pooping talking to you right now and you don't even know it.
Yeah,
So
I have a bunch of questions, obviously. So, like,
yeah,
basic
there's always so
questions.
many questions because it is something very different. But I always say, beauty and resilience and strength come from difference, and something challenging really builds character as well. So
Oh, that's awesome. No, it's an incredible story. I mean, a lot to unpack. So I have a few questions. I'll start with
yeah.
basic questions because I'm a novice when it comes to colostomy bags. So what does do you feel it like when you're going, or you don't feel it?
I love this question.
Yeah.
So it really depends what you eat. I would say 97% of the time you do not feel it. It is just it's coming out. It's not like a formed stool in the way that people go through their booty, because it's also like a shortened digestive tract. We have no control. I'm not pushing her. I don't have like a sphincter muscle like you guys.
Mhm.
The stoma itself has no nerve ending, so if I were to like shut my eyes and somebody else were to touch it with their finger, I would not feel it. So there's no feeling in that area. If I were to eat something, let's say that doesn't necessarily agree with my stomach, some ostomates, every ostomate is very different when it comes to their diet and their dietary restrictions. Some may have more dietary restrictions than others. Of course, when you first get your ostomy, you can slowly introduce new foods to get your body adapted because it is a different way of your body breaking down the food now. And because you don't have the ability to push it out, if it's something that is a little bit more like rigid and your body doesn't necessarily break down, what can happen is something called a blockage, which I've had around probably 4 or 5 in my entire, I'm almost at 17 years of ostomy life. My stoma versary, so it's like your ostomy birthday, is actually May 2nd. We're going to be celebrating 17 years.
Wow, it's
I'm
coming up.
obviously doing a photo shoot because there's no better way to celebrate going poo in a bag for 17 years than a glamorous photo shoot with diamonds. um, but yeah, so if I were to eat something, my kind of like, I don't have any no foods, I just have like popcorn and mushroom. I can't eat too much of it. They are very typical foods actually for ostomates that most of us have difficulty breaking down, including corn. So if I were to eat, let's just say like a lot of mushrooms or a lot of corn, or a lot of popcorn, I can sometimes feel it a little bit like those pieces because my body doesn't actually fully break them down, meaning like the mushroom can literally come out in like that piece. Like I can't even explain it. It's like they all refine each other, have a party in my body, and come out together as one piece. And the same thing as popcorn.
Mushrooms are so weird because you would never think
Yeah.
mushrooms don't break down. You would Popcorn makes
It's
sense
like
because
literally rubber. So yeah, popcorn is, I don't know what it is, but it's also like you're not, when you think about you're eating popcorn, like you're not eating it to the point where it's turning into a liquid. You're swallowing and you still have like mini pieces, right? So it's the
Mhm.
same concept. All those like kind of mini pieces, our bodies don't necessarily like break them down more like other foods that become, let's just say, like a puree or like a paste. So that would be like the only time that I might feel it coming out. And if it gets to the point where I ate like way too much, I went completely, rogue. I say, like ostomy gone rogue, like completely forgot about the fact that like I have this because it happens sometimes. It's life. I want to live. And sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'll deal with this tomorrow. I want to enjoy my moment. Um,
Mhm.
there can be a point where you get a blockage, which means nothing is coming out. You're not able to go poo. There are some at-home remedies that you're able to kind of like go through. There's, laxatives you could do. You can, depending on the severity of it, you can massage your stomach. Um, I've literally taken the, shower hose and use it as like an irrigation and use like the streams to go up my stomach because the water will go up. But in the case where, you're in severe, severe pain, this has happened to me 2 times out of all my blockages. You do have to go to the emergency. They'll tend to, give you a painkiller, and sometimes it's very rare, never for me, but for others I have heard sometimes it does turn into an obstruction, which means the intestine literally kinks from trying to
Oh.
basically move the stool so much, and it does require surgical intervention. Luckily that has not happened to me, but definitely now being a little bit older, more wise, more aware of these things, I definitely pick and choose, my moments that I decide to go rogue, but it's not all the time.
Okay, so the 97% of the time you said you don't feel it when you're
Yeah,
going.
I would
Um,
say even like higher than that, probably like 99.9% of the time. Like
okay.
really that point one that I'm literally like that I feel it. But no, like I just look down or I go touch and I'm like, oh, cool. Like I took a shit. That's cool.
So Crohn's disease itself is like, is your body just not good at digesting food? Is that really what it is? Like,
It's a lot more than that.
mm,
I always say, like as much as it's a physical disease, it is as well, a mental disease in terms of the actual, definition and what it is. It is, severe inflammation of the digestive system. So, inability to basically digest the food, but as well eliminate waste. You can have, ulcers in your stomach. You can have, I think they're called polyps. You can develop fistulas, which are like tunnels through your intestine and openings. You have, of course, your bowel movements. You can have an insane amount of diarrhea, blood in the stool, severe, severe chronic pain, like chronic pain to the point where you're literally curled up, cannot move, severe nausea. You can affect, other areas of your body. I had, liver issues. You can have skin issues as well. Your hair can get affected. And in terms of like the mental component also, a lot of us live through it, unfortunately, alone because like how I think I said before, like Crohn's disease, colitis, and ostomy, it revolves around the topic of number two, poop, which for whatever reason by society is deemed, like this taboo topic. Even Kim K has said to the media, like she doesn't poop. Like you're clearly delusional. Everybody goes poop. So it's already revolved around a topic that you're not like I always say walking into the office and being like, hey, how was your morning poop? You're asking about the weekend. It's not something we're actively talking about on a daily basis. Now you have a disease, or in my case, a disease and an ostomy that literally is completely like has to deal with poop.
mhm.
Um, it's really, really hard to, figure out how to talk about it and navigate that conversation and find the words, the embarrassment, the uncomfortability, the concern for people's reactions and just acknowledgement. And a lot of the times, Crohn's disease and colitis and IBD, our symptoms are downplayed and people just think, oh, like it's the pooping disease, like you go to the bathroom a lot more, don't you?
That's what
And
it is, right? It's like you go to the bathroom more. It's not that you can't go to the bathroom.
yeah, so I mean, like it's you obviously go to the bathroom a lot more, but like it's not just the pooping disease. There's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's like it's everything that you can compare sometimes what your life was like before it. The countless times being in the bathroom stall alone, crying. You get chronic fatigue as well. The, constant having to figure out like going to medications, treatments, doctor's appointments, your triggers. One day you can have a flare and the next day you can be completely normal because that happens as well. And it's a lot of different mental aspects as well as physical aspects. And I think that's what is so important to communicate, because unfortunately there's no cure. It's a chronic illness. There's so much research and R&D being done and everything. But like it's expected that the cases are only going to continue rising. And it's important to develop that understanding in society for this illness. Like there's understandings for other illnesses because unfortunately, patients like myself who have it, if we don't feel comfortable to talk up about it and to showcase what it is and to provide our stories as insight to bring the awareness to it and to help others navigate the journey and feel less alone in it also, then it's gonna stay silence. It's gonna stay, quiet.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, what I'm trying to do with every single thing that I do, in relation to Crohn's disease and ostomies.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I could see being like a young kid, not knowing what's going on with your body, like people developing like eating disorders and stuff where
Yeah,
like they think like I shouldn't even eat anything because, it's gonna hurt if I eat, something like
yeah.
that.
And it's
Yeah.
like it's kind of similar for like Crohn's disease. I mean, it's a completely different illness. I can't necessarily speak to that one. I can only understand, of course, it's a mental illness. It's extremely challenging to navigate too. But for us, we start associating eating with pain as well because every time we eat, we get pain from stomach cramps from going. So I was malnutrition for a very long time, and that's why I had to be fed by nose tube. I had to be fed by TPN because I essentially, refused to eat, and I dropped down to, I think I was around, 50 pounds at age 11, which is severely underweight. And it's very difficult because it's a roller coaster of emotions. And, a lot of the times, younger me, I was caught in this circle of just constantly asking, like, why me? Like, why do I have to go through this? And I felt very alone. And that's why it's so important to speak up. If you have a story or something and you want to, I always say, like, screw what other people think, because online, of course, there's a lot of haters. For all the positive, comments and messages I get a lot of negativity because, people are crazy. But, everybody has a voice, and I think it's beautiful to be able to use it to advocate for others and yourself.
Totally is, totally. You did mention like you went through all of high school with the colostomy bag. So and you said you kept it a secret to most people. So how
Yeah.
did you do that like with gym class? Like when you have to change for gym class, how did people not
Yeah.
notice? Yeah.
I developed my techniques. I was changing in bathroom stalls. You know, I was just not doing what I needed to do, like in front of people, in terms of, my clothing and everything. I tend to wear a little bit more baggy clothing in the beginning and slowly merge to different types of clothing. I was cutting nylons at one point, wearing them, cut nylons underneath all, leggings, pants, jeans, etc., to keep the bag flat. I was cutting out cardboard from granola boxes, in order to put it in front of my ostomy bag, because the flange, which is the piece that sticks to the stomach, and then you have the bag that basically attaches on, kind of imagine like a Tupperware system, like a storage
Oh,
container system. Um, you can see the imprint of that because it's like a plastic hard piece through, like leggings or dresses or tight clothing. So I was literally getting, a lot of people say people with ostomies become extremely, like DIY, become extremely, I'm forgetting the word, but we think
but
fast.
mhm.
Yeah.
Quick on your
And
feet. Yeah.
yeah, quick on our feet,
Hmm.
because we also can deal with like leaks and bag explosions and all of that, and you need to deal with it ASAP. But yeah, I was putting pieces of cardboard in front of the bag underneath the outfit in order to like hide the
Oh,
imprint. When it came to dating, when I started to like date, I did have, partners, intimate partners where, I was not telling them about my ostomy for a very long time. I kept a sweater on. I would basically, it's called, I refer to it as sports mode. So you put your bag in sports mode, you basically flip the bag up, and I was keeping basically the bag underneath the sweatshirt. And I would just, or a tank top sometimes, wrap a tank top up around my waist. I actually did a reel about this on my Instagram, and everybody was dying of laughter and relating it to it so much because it is a common saying in ostomy world. And I was telling them like, if you want this to happen, I've had surgeries. I'm just self-conscious about my body, my scars, da da da, whatever. When it was not that at all. I just don't remove my sweatshirt. And there was a lot of partners or guys that I didn't necessarily just know how to bring that up in an intimate spicy situation. And that was all part of my many challenges, as I got into my later teens and my early adult years. And I would start being like, okay, Sarah, like this is a little bit wild, you definitely need to start telling people, like.
yeah.
And I started testing myself with the ones that meant a little bit more to me, and the actual relationships and stuff. And sometimes these conversations took like 2, 3 hours, and like the first hour and a half was just pure silence. And I would just be like, so like at this point, they knew I had Crohn's disease. I would slowly get into that point and be like, but I've had surgeries, you know that by now. But I need to talk to you about what kind of surgery I had. And then like sometimes they would just go like mute. And they would just be waiting. And it would just be like really hard to talk about it. When it came to, swimwear, I had absolutely no relationship with bikinis. God forbid if I were to wear a bikini. We did not know who she was. I would only be wearing, one pieces in the beginning. And even at that point, I was wearing, little like swimmer shorts underneath. But I would feel very, self-conscious. I would not want to go swimming because when a bikini gets wet, it gets a little bit more grooves in with like your skin. So it grooves in with like the bag imprint, and you can, clearly see there's something there. I remember I had situations where I would go to friends' houses that didn't know I had this. And I would go swimming and they'd be like, oh, like what's that on your stomach? And I would literally freeze, and I would be like, oh my God, and I would just say, oh, there's nothing there. Like, and I would just, shoo it away. So eventually through my years, I went and I merged to, two-piece bikinis that are higher waisted. And then the first time, I ever wore a bikini in public with low-waisted bottoms was one of the most pivotal moments in my journey. Actually, I went on a family vacation to Cuba back in 2019. It's like my early 20s. And I told my dad, Dad, I'm going crazy and I'm packing nothing but bikinis. He had asked me, like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, like it's a different country. I'm not going to see anybody I know. I really want to try to like attempt. I'm not going there to like take pictures or whatever. Like, I want to try. And, it was challenging. It was hard. I walked the beach the first day with my arm kind of like every ostomate does, a little bit like in front. But it was a first, and that was a moment too where I was regaining a little bit of a piece back to myself. So hiding it was in many different areas of my life, but every area that I hid it, I kept trying later on to basically reclaim it. And it's like, for instance, even the gym, like I go to the gym now. I love working out, and I go to a public gym, and there's obviously so many other girls and strangers there, and like I will, I don't care, like I will literally change right there with my bag. And if a stranger sees me, like like
Do
speak to
they
her
ever
about
say
it. Yeah.
anything? Does anyone ever ask about it?
It does happen sometimes, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
In public settings, to be honest, like um, people typically will, obviously they know that it's something different. If they don't know what it is, normally a lot of people, unfortunately, like they don't know what it is because it's not spoken about a lot, because of the stigma and the embarrassment and everything that we're trying so hard to fight. But in the situations that it has happened, for instance, last year when I did compete in Miss Bikini US, we were a lot of girls and, we were in bikinis all the time, every day. And, we're a little bit more of like, it's more of like an interactive social setting. Like you're right there, you're talking. And it's not like it's like a stranger that there's no conversation going on. So in those types of situations, sometimes I have been approached to be like, hey, like I'm so curious. I don't mean to like pry or whatever. I'm just like I like clearly you have a story. I would love to know. And I've been approached in that, and honestly, like I encourage it. I love it because it's informative, and that's awareness, and that's just one more person to me that knows what an ostomy is. That who knows, like who she'll tell, or who it will, that information will get to. But it really it and a lot of ostomates, this is an area that they fear, and I say all the time, it really doesn't, a lot of it is in our head. It really does not happen often. Of course, on a beach in a bikini, or I typically wear a lot of outfits now that have my bag out. I wear my low-waisted jeans, I wear my mini skirts. My fashion has completely changed from concealing my ostomy and putting cardboard boxes in front of her to literally wearing low-waisted jeans where she's literally just out and about wearing a diamond cover or something. um, but a lot of times it is in our head. And we will get stares if the bag is there, because it's, and unfortunately that is society, it's curiosity and everything, and the stares can play into the confidence and the esteem and everything. But I always say it's an area of ostomy life. Of course, it's something curious. It's like, if you were to see something that you were curious about, or you had never
Yeah.
seen before, whatever, you're going to stare at it. And I always say, just try to get that mindset. They're not necessarily looking at it with a negative outlook, which is what we quickly will assume. So yeah, really it depends the situation, but it's usually a lot of it is fabricated in our head based on our own fears.
And you probably get a lot of messages and stuff from people, right? Like in similar situations. And
Yeah, it's one of like my favorite parts about this. I mean, like everything I do is really attached to the community, and just if I can improve the life of one other person that is going through the same thing I went through, or is like about to go through it, to me it's like my goal has been met, and that is like just pure happiness to me. And I get questions and I get private messages and comments on the daily from so many people completely across the world, that have ostomies, that don't have ostomies, even that have other chronic illnesses, that are just, um, asking a question about like related to ostomy life, or just in general of adapting to visible differences. And it's such a humbling thing to know that I can be like a light in their journey, and be able to guide them and help them, and give them that that hope that little me like missed out on severely, and just be able to like show them and help them kind of change their outlook and their mindset.
that's amazing. What's your like social media, or like how can people get in touch with you? Do you have like a
Yeah,
website or
for sure.
anything?
They
Or
can
yeah.
definitely join the shitty journey. There's definitely a lot of stuff to see there. Very humorous. But my Instagram is at Sara Levs. So it's SARALEVS. And then my TikTok is Sara Levitt. So SARALEVITT.
Awesome, awesome. So before we go, can you give me the biggest, best piece of advice you could give to just say your younger self, someone that's that age, that's going through this? What is something you wish you knew back then that you know now?
The biggest thing I always say is you're not alone. There are so many other people that have IBD and that have ostomies as well. And the second most important thing is it's going to get better. In times of severe illnesses and surgeries and everything, it's hard sometimes because you're so caught up in those heightened emotions to feel any sense of like hope and faith, and that it's going to get better, and that there's going to be a positive outcome of it, from somebody that has who now lived so many sides of this spectrum of chronic illness journey and a visible illness, a visible difference journey. And, gone from one extremity of, literally hating her body to another extremity of literally putting it on display to advocate and, inspire others and fight for change in the world. Chronic illness and visible difference journey is a roller coaster of a journey, and it will get better. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and it's going to continuously be like that. Even though I have all my confidence and all my comfortability of ostomy life and everything, I still experience low moments, and we're humans, and that's totally okay, and that's totally normal. Give yourself some grace, be patient and kind to yourself, but just know that it will get better.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me. I love shit talking.
Yeah, we got to take away the taboo.
Yes,
We all
exactly.
poo. It's not
We
taboo.
all poo. And I always say, like in our community, there's literally no such thing as TMI. And, just stay shitty and stay proud. It
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah.
was so great talking.
Same here. Everyone else,
Bye.
thank you again
Thank you,
for,
everybody. Yeah.
yes, thank you for watching another Fighter Heart podcast. We will see you again next week.